Okay, this is part three. If you're just stumbling upon this, we had to abruptly cut off the end of part two because of the file size. So this is actually the end of a 6.5 hour presentation that will be listed. Like the original was the Archons, and then there's a part two, and this is part three. We left off, we were talking about how Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum, we'd gone through all of that, showing the clips in their own words, who they say they put in place, who is part of their organization as leaders over multiple nations and half of Trudeau's cabinet. And this is in their own words. This isn't my words. This is the clip. You can watch it with your own eyes. And then we went down from that, showing how they had infiltrated the administration of these huge hospitals, most of the public hospitals, the same way that George Soros had made sure that certain DAs were in place and judges are in place. So they're all working together. And even if they get caught, you can't prosecute them because it's their DAs and their judges. They'll just dismiss the cases. So it's the same way in the hospitals. And we had shown clips both from nurses, whistleblowers within the hospital, saying that there absolutely were death panels and that these administrators were murdering patients. So we had both the nurses and the patients give testimony. There was a patient who escaped, and then a nurse who witnessed this type of thing, this institutionalized murder. So again, if you just stumbled upon this and you haven't seen the first two parts, you might want to go back and watch those, because this is going to seem outlandish, but it is not. And basically, that summary catches you up to where we're picking up from right here. We're right in the middle of talking about the Milgram experiment that proved people will blindly obey authority, especially if they have a lab coat on. And that's the Milgram experiment. They just put them in a lab coat, an actor with a clipboard, and the people in the hospital would do what they were told. And that's precisely what the nurse whistleblower said, that the people down at the regular treatment levels, they are just following protocol. But the people in the administrative levels are the ones committing the murder, that they have infiltrated the entire medical community from the top down, from the World Health Organization to the NIH to the CDC to the FDA, all the way down. You know, big pharma, that's where the FDA gets its board members. So that's why they have all of this legal protection, that it doesn't matter how many people they kill, they can't be sued. I mean, that's ridiculous. And what we're addressing with the Milgram experiment here is trying to wake people up to the fact that just because you have a white lab coat on, or you're on the TV, just because they put you up on the TV doesn't make you an authority on the issue at all. And it certainly doesn't mean that you're honest and trustworthy. And that's where we enter into the true crime section, like the picture that's been on the screen while I'm doing this intro, that we'll talk about starting right here. All of these doctors that have been serial killers and that type of thing, to help people understand that doctors are just people, and they can be corrupted by money, they can be bribed, they can kill people, they can do all the same things that any other person does. That being said, here is part three and the end of this 6.5 hour podcast. And here on the screen, if you want to just pause it and read the basics if you're not familiar with it, but it was, would these people kill somebody? Would they go all the way to killing somebody? Like we were talking about the Rasmussen poll, that already the Democrats polled were saying well over half of them, yeah, they wanted to round us up. They wanted the government to take our children away. If we won't let big pharma do human experiments on our children and genetic augmentation and all of this, they believe that the government should take our children, round us up, put us in prison, all because the government told them this is for our own good. They can't seem to accept reality. It's very bizarre, because we know governments throughout world history are the cause of the most murders in all of recorded history. But yet they can't accept reality, that governments kill their own citizens. Governments commit genocide in all ethnicities. This shadow government, this world government, has placed These leaders are constantly trying, like Klaus Schwab said, oh, the leader of Argentina is from us, the leader of France is from us, Trudeau is from us, and half of his cabinet. Putin's been with us since he was in the young leaders of the World Economic Forum. So it has nothing to do with ethnicity or skin color. We use terms like we talk about the Nazis or we talk about communism because those are easily packaged philosophies, that we can help communicate with people who have come up through the public education system. But it's always been this satanic government placing these people over all the ethnicities of humankind, the 12 tribes of the Hebrews, to keep us enslaved all the way back to Babylon. The ancient Babylonian Empire was always carrying the Hebrews off into captivity, and they committed genocide constantly. Remember when Moses was born? The Egyptians killed all of the male children. That was the government mandate, right? Came down from the government of Egypt, kill all of the male Hebrews. And then thousands of years later, when Jesus was born, King Herod, sent down the mandate to kill all of the children under 2 years old, because he had heard from the wise men, the educated men had told him, hey, this is the era that the Messiah is born. He's in the earth. The Christ has been born. And so in an effort to kill Jesus, and they escaped, that's the story, that an angel appeared to them and said, load up, get your family and get out of town, and preserved Jesus's life. Obviously, if God's in it, you're going to win it. But the point is that government, that king, his mandate was to kill all the children, and they slaughtered those children. So this has been throughout all of world history, no matter how far back you go into the ancient archaeology, right up to our present history books, right up to our present day. And yet they cannot believe that a government would kill its own citizens. They're just out of touch with reality. This is the reality. This is the sad reality of the situation we're in. They have given us authorities like Fauci, the World Health Organization, authorities that we are not allowed to question. They dictate to us. Now Biden doesn't even bother passing anything through Congress. None of the presidents have in a long time. It's just executive order, executive order, executive order. Well, that's a dictatorship by definition. Our system was set up with three branches, checks and balances. Laws come from Congress. They have to go through a process, but now they don't. It's just a dictatorship. Executive order, executive order, executive order. So, yeah, we don't call them openly the Nazis. We use the terminology. The left calls us the Nazis and the right calls them the communists, but it's been this New World Order dictatorship for a long time. And they know how to do it because they've done all the psychological experiments, like the Milgram experiment. They proved to themselves that 65% of the people would lethally kill another person if the authorities told them it was the right thing to do. So when we talk about these deaths in the hospital, I know a lot of people think that's just hyperbolic, like it's not murder, but it is. I know a lot of people can't believe that it has gone that far. But the conclusion of the Milgram experiment showed that all of the participants would shock an innocent human with 300 volts of electroshock if a person wearing a white lab coat carrying a clipboard, just an actor wearing a white lab coat carrying a clipboard, told them to. 25 out of the 40 went all the way up to the 450 volts. The conclusion was that 65% of the people in the Milgram experiment would lethally kill a person in the presence of a, quote, authority. Obedience to authority is ingrained in us all from the way we were brought up. We have been programmed through the re-education camps, the public education system. We are already in an authoritarian regime. We were born into it. And they use the same playbook, the same psyops, the same psychological operations over and over and over. Dr. Joseph Mengele was not the only psychopathic serial killer doctor who would be willing to do experimentation on humans. In fact, to break that normalcy bias, that cognitive dissonance, in the new bookstore that we're making, the Truth Library, the Mysteries of the Universe Gallery, I've been very intentional about the layout of the books. So, for example, in the section where I showcase and merchandise Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s new book, The Real Anthony Fauci, the display shelves are set up to where it will have a row of his books about Anthony Fauci, and the very next shelf will be a section on world history and the killer doctors in World War II, like books on Dr. Mengele. And then below that, the whole rest of the section will be a true crime section on killer doctors. I even stocked books from our local area to really break off the normalcy bias of people. We've had killer doctors here that murdered people, not just in hospitals, but like shot them with guns. And there are books written about them. So, I stocked all the way from the local level up through our state and nationally and worldwide a true crime section of killer doctors, killer nurses. There's tons of them. Killer nurses, serial killers that went around injecting, euthanizing people long before what people are reporting in the hospitals now. So it's important to realize that just because someone, like the Milgram experiment, just because someone's wearing a white lab coat does not mean that they are a holy, righteous, person that you can trust. Even though they scrub the internet of it with algorithms constantly, I mean, you can just do a search. You can see doctors beating up patients, restrained patients, punching them in the face, all over in every country, in China and Russia and the United States. The people, patients, recording secretly these people being abused, like physically beaten. And yet people can't believe that there could be bad doctors. I mean, look at this stuff. It's in every single country. These doctors are maniacs, especially in mental hospitals. I mean, just go through the search engines. There's like limitless footage of doctors and nurses just beating, assaulting people who are restrained, tied down, and they're just punching them in the face. Here's one, young patients in a psychiatric hospital, and with the pedogate thing, and of course Savile over in England, like that was one of his favorite hunting grounds, were the mental hospitals. But I mean, it's regular hospitals too. The point is, people are being held hostage and fighting for their lives. They're having to go to court to try to get their loved ones discharged from hospitals. When it's the law, you can walk out of a hospital if you want. You can check out and go into hospice and die at home. You don't have to die in a hospital. Like what's going on? Why are people not standing up? And why is it such a hard thing to believe, to get people to believe all of these people, these whistleblowers coming out of the hospital saying they are intentionally murdering people? The genocide has begun. The culling has begun. So my intent with the layout, instead of just doing alphabetical order, everything was spine out, with having this displays merchandised in a very specific way that the Lord told me to do it. I sat down in prayer opened my notebook. I sat down in prayer. God, what is it you want me to do? How do you want me to do this? And I sketched out all of the layout of the store, of the library. And this is how he told me to do it, because people can come in. It's communication. It's not just a library or a store. People can come in and just browse through the sections, and I'm going to tell them a story. They don't have to buy a book. They don't have to crack a book. They don't have to even read anything or watch a DVD. If they just walk through the store browsing the history that I present, going down an avenue of thought just by looking at a display, seeing books on Fauci, juxtaposed against history books about Dr. Joseph Mengele, juxtaposed against history books about tons of other doctors and nurses who have been serial killers and that type of thing, that just browsing should remind them, so they at least might walk away questioning their blind obedience to authority, that it might just plant a seed, right? So hopefully all of our efforts as we fight this information war will embolden people to step forward like Aaron and say, I'm not going to do it. No, I'm not going to. You, doctor, are wrong. What you are doing is wrong. It's of the utmost importance that we continue to fight till the very end to wake people up to the fact that this is the end. This is the final solution.
And then the final solution, which is a year to 2 years off, is the vaccines.
In 2014, the World Health Organization was accused of chemically sterilizing millions of Kenyan women without their consent. They did this with what was said to be a tetanus vaccine. The World Health Organization has since admitted to developing sterility and family planning vaccines for over a decade. Of course, Africa isn't the only place these forced sterilizations have reached. Beyond vaccines, they've even tried to limit fertility by genetically modifying crops, like they did with contraceptive corn. And back when Monsanto was only Monsanto, not Bayer Monsanto, Gates had invested millions and millions of dollars in the company.
And then the final solution, which is a year to 2 years off, is the vaccine. So we've got to go full speed ahead on all three fronts.
And then the final solution.
Just to head off the conspiracy theorists, maybe we shouldn't call the vaccine the final solution. Maybe just the
Good
best
point.
solution. Okay.
Yeah.
In all aspects of what this shadow government has been doing all of this time, from the genetic purity, the genetic engineering, to the genocide, to the culling, they say openly in their writings that is their goal, to create a superhuman, an Uberman, transcendent man. This is all culminated in this transhumanist movement. Cybernetics. This is a cybernetics program for, quote, organisms with both organic and mechanical parts. So again, this is not my opinion. This is not a theory. They say openly that they are going to achieve that through this smart dust, these nanoparticles. And this is where the secret space program comes in. Again, this is something that was talked about back in World War II with the Nazi regime, this secret space program. The occult spiritists in the Vril Society were channeling these demons who were giving them all of this technology, diagrams of UFOs and all of this type of thing. And they had a secret space program. Fast forward to modern times, and we have this segment in the conspiracy theory movement, the truth movement, who have come forward saying that they are currently involved in a secret space program, or have been over the last decade or two, or since they were a child. And so that's the topic that I want to talk about right now. This stuff, again, that sounds on the surface completely outlandish. What do you mean that you did 20-year tour and then came back and your parents never missed you? You came back into this life and you were the same exact age, didn't miss a beat, just stuff like, how does any of this make sense? Well, in light of all of this technology we've talked about here today, it makes perfect sense. So I think probably the best way to lay out this case would be just to let them talk. Here's a couple of people who claim to have memories of being part of this, quote, secret space program. So I'm just going to use clips of them saying their piece, telling what they experienced and they remember. And then I'm going to come in with commentary as I play those clips, showing that maybe there's a different way to look at this. Maybe there's a different way to interpret these experiences that they are remembering. I'm not saying that these people are lying or that they're crazy or they're making any of this up. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying let's let them tell their story, what they perceive happened to them, and then I will throw my 2 cents in on maybe there's a different way to look at what type of program they've really been enrolled in. Okay, now going into this, realize that the majority of the information that we have, or they will be presenting, most of the people who claim to be in this program, this secret space program, are presenting, has been recovered through multiple techniques like hypnosis, the way Bud Hopkins used hypnosis to help people recover the memories of their alien abduction experiences. Like, say, Travis Walton, he remembers seeing the aliens, he remembers the ship, his friends remember seeing the UFO, but then he has lapses in his memory because they have some sort of technology where, when, and we see this with the SRA, the satanic ritual abuse victims as well, when they're done, they use these techniques on them to block portions of their memory. And that's not outlandish. We just looked at clips of them talking about giving us literal lobotomies, shutting off portions of our brain using viruses and stuff. I mean, these people have brain mapped us. They have mastered ways to shut down our brain to the point that we're only using 20 to 25%. So I don't know if you choose to believe in these techniques of memory recovery or not. That's up to you. But I just wanted to preface this saying that the majority of these recovered memories, it's sort of like the UFO abductees, they have real memories, and that prompted them to go on this search to be like, what was that? What happened after I saw the UFO? What happened after these military people came in? What happened? So most of this information that we'll be talking about here was covered through techniques like hypnosis. So you can take it or leave it.
In hypnosis to find out about my own SSP memories. That's how I was able to get that information for myself from self-hypnosis, and basically to find out that I had been serving in planetary corporations on the various Mars bases and cybernetics labs.
Okay, first clue right off the bat. Wherever she was working in cybernetics labs, quote, for organisms with both organic and mechanical parts.
Secret space program service on Mars, Antarctica, and also some of the space stations. Also to serve on the moon. So I did about 12 different jobs for planetary corporations throughout. And the way that the 60 years is set up, it's done through the quantum leap. So basically you have your reality, you have the Earth reality, and you're taken from that and you're transported to Mars through the jump room gateways. You're teleported from your home. Everybody's asleep. And my uniforms looked like a jumpsuit, but it was a smart suit. Basically, you're the daily wear.
So when you're transported out, are you gone the entire 60 years, or are you in and out of your body? How does that actually work?
Yeah, I felt like I was in and out at some points. So I knew that Earth was here. I actually got to live my life. For the most part, though, I remember the whole 60 and back mostly being there and sometimes on Earth. So like they can build a portal bridge between Earth through the time traveling. So it seems like it's all so seamless.
Who else that you know has been involved in this, and you both have memories? Is there anyone like that out there that you've connected with?
Yeah, I've connected with a lot of people. James Rank, Tony Rodriguez, Jason Rice, Penny Bradley, you, of course. So, and other people that I've actually done hypnosis on, Matt Tracy, and a lot of other people just basically who have had experiences in the SSP who've been clients of mine. Yeah, and of course, it all started with a gentleman whose name I shall not mention who came forward with this stuff. And he kind of opened up the process of coming forward and disclosing, yet he was part of the program to stop disclosure as well, to be a gatekeeper. That's his programming, what the SSP gave him. So it's been quite a journey of 7 years disclosing.
That's incredible. Mine has been probably closer to 5 years where I really started waking up to it. But so it's great to, be involved with, people that have very good recall, almost total recall, kind of like that one movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's what a lot of people are starting to experience. And why do you think they're allowing us to have this total recall and talk about it?
Well, it's almost like a 40-year plan, really, that we're going to start disclosing. Then the Navy will disclose that UFOs are real. Then the biological drug serums will come out. So nanotechnology, Neuralink implants will come out. So this has been staged and planned. Planetary Corp has been planning this all along for Earth as well. What they have on Mars, they hope to develop as another carbon template here on Earth. And we're the first ones to put it out into the public's, like to seed the public with information about these programs, what we went through. I mean, it's quite popular on YouTube right now. It's not being censored, it's being promoted as popular. Secret Space Program is one on the top list that's found on videos. They're not censored. So if Google is not censoring it, YouTube is not censoring it, there's a reason, because they want this out here in the public domain. And I think we're the ones that are being used to promote this. SSP.
They're allowing us to seed it, like you're talking about, seed it into the consciousness, and that's what I got as well. And as my memories come through, I'm pretty excited about sharing them. But I know that there's a certain level, because I've pushed up against it, unfortunately, where they don't want certain things to be revealed.
So some people are really programmed to be gatekeepers and to start harassing other people if they come forward. Mm-hmm. So some individuals, you could say, are the Manchurian candidates.
Right.
So because they have that programming, I think to a degree, we all have some programming, and some of us have alters, some don't. So it's really about the experiences we've had, to what degree we served in these programs.
Elon Musk talks about the Neuralink. So you've been given disclosure on Neuralink. So in my memories of Neuralink, I don't see it as a negative. Now, a lot of people are like, whoa, 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 whoa. You're going to put something in my brain and it's going to start to take over. I don't see that. I see it as a benefit. How do you see the Neuralink information?
Well, Elon Musk calls it Neuralink. On Mars, in the Planetary Corp, it's Neuralink, because it's a whole neuronal web interface of, I had 4 implants that were in my brain. It's Neuralink implants. So basically, they were not connected to any form of AI, external AI or internal AI. They were energy core implants that were dermally infused through my skin, went up my bloodstream, went up through the blood-brain barrier, went left side of my brain.
Okay, this is probably a good place to pause and start the conversation. Just going off of their actual experiences and not what people have told them it was. Clearly, what she is describing is Bill Gates and Rice University's quantum dot nanotechnology patch.
We could get the RNA sequence from that, beam it to a number of regional centers, if not local, if not even in your home at some point, and print those vaccines on a patch and self-administer.
She said that her neural implants, her neural interface, was given to her through a dermal patch, and then the nanotechnology dissolved and traveled through her bloodstream. And then the nanobots, the neural implants, then lodged in her brain and connected into different circuits of her brain. So here we are at the Rice University official page about the quantum dot tattoo and vaccination record. And, it's exactly that. You can go and read all the science. We've done tons of videos on it. So it says, when the needles dissolve in about 2 minutes, they deliver the vaccine and leave the pattern of the tags just under the skin, where they become something like a barcode tattoo. So see how the microneedles then dissolve, and like she said, they enter your bloodstream, go up through the blood-brain barrier, and the nanotechnology deploys through your body, the same way we've seen with the messenger RNA. Though it was a big shock, right, that it didn't stay in the deltoid muscle. They didn't expect that. Of course they did. They wanted it to go into your bloodstream and go to everywhere that it was programmed to go. It's a nano machine. It's a molecular nano machine. It's programmed to go certain places. So at this point, I think you guys can probably see where I'm going with this, that they are not going into outer space. They are going into the metaverse. These are people who have been wired in, and they are going into virtual reality, and they think that it is reality, which is totally ironic because he just mentioned the Total Recall movie. Total Recall movie synopsis. What is reality, and when can you trust your own memory? A trip to a false memory transplant service for an imaginary trip to Mars. Imaginary. I mean, he just said this and he's not making the connection. They still believe that they are in a space program, like they are going to outer space. Like she really thinks she went to the moon. And I'm not mocking them in the sense, because you just heard them in their own interview say, okay, we know we're being used. Why? Why are they allowing us to talk about this and even trending it? They're boosting people who are talking about the secret space program when they're censoring all truth. Like, what, we know we're being used and there's something that we're not accessing. So, I'm not making fun of them. I'm trying to help them. If you know people who have been enrolled in these beta tests for the metaverse, for the virtual reality, for the sentient world simulation, for, all of this, maybe share this video with them and help them, because we need their testimony. We need people who have been inside these beta test programs and have been wired with this technology. We need them to come forward as whistleblowers, but we need them to know the truth, that they are the ones that the corporations experimented on with these quantum dot tattoos and neural implants that now they are trying to force on every single human on the earth through mandates. No jab, no job. We need them to come forward and tell people, hey, wait a second, you're going to wake up one day and think you're on Mars, or you're not going to wake up. Your body isn't going to wake up. You're going to be laying there like you're in the Matrix permanently, laying there in a pod somewhere. And that's another similarity that they always say, right? These secret space programs, they don't like get on a rocket ship or something and go to space. No, they are transported, like their consciousness. And then they come back after a 20-year tour or a 60-year tour, and they're still the same age and not a day has been missed, and their family didn't miss them. Their families come out and go, okay, they're crazy because they, I raised them. I didn't see anything happening, because they don't know that when these people went to sleep, their minds were hijacked. Their consciousness was taken into virtual reality. And that again is exactly what Donald Marshall was saying. He said that they were taking people's consciousness during REM sleep, which exactly fits the experiments with human brain waves when they're trying to bring people down into a very low frequency, here below 3 hertz, and it causes detached awareness and sleep. And that's delta. It's the delta wave, as in the D wave quantum computer. This is where they're going. They're not going to outer space. They're going into these quantum dimensions in this quantum computer. And you'll see, especially, what's his name? Jaco? Is that his last name? Him and his cohorts that he runs around with, they preach about this quantum economy, all of this quantum computer stuff, that is all of the stuff that's linked to the mark of the beast and the quantum computer and the virtual reality and this entire antichrist mimic. They'll say things like he just said, like, well, I don't see the chip as a bad thing, or this quantum economy that's coming, it's a good thing from the white hats, and all this quantum talk. And and again, like I said, they themselves know that they're being used for some reason. So I'm not trying to say that he's doing this on purpose, or, he's like, he knows what's going on, but I'm saying we need to be aware. We can't, no, we can't go along with the quantum computer world. We're not going into the quantum economy. We're not going into the quantum dimensions, the VR, the virtual reality dimensions. We're not going to get on a rocket ship and go to the moon. But we do need to be careful and wise and have discernment because, like I said, we need these people to tell us what they have experienced in these beta tests for this nano neural interface. But it shouldn't be any mystery why YouTube and Google and everybody are pushing the narrative that this has to do with space travel. I mean, this whole Mars thing, they've always used this to cover everything up, right? They told us that all of world history and the archaeological records they're just mythology. Demons aren't real. Nephilim aren't real. All that's mythology. These humanoid creatures are extraterrestrials coming from outer space. They're coming from Mars. They're coming from Venus, you know? So that's what they've always done. They've used this narrative again and again to hide the truth, to hide this satanic hierarchy. And now they're using it to hide these beta tests of the, what does she call them? She doesn't call them vaccine injections. She calls them biological drug serums that will come out. That's what they are sent here to do. Control the narrative and plant the seeds about these, quote, biological drug serums that will come out and these psychopharmaceutical nanotechnologies. You know, that they will be, that then there will be UFO disclosure and all of this that we know they are setting up. It's the Great Deception. Ancient Aliens has been pushing the same propaganda for years and years. The aliens seeded the earth with their DNA. They are our creators, not God the creator, not your God, your Christian God. Come on. Aliens are your creator. And they abduct these people and show them all these images on screens and send them back to tell us about cataclysms are coming to the earth and wars and nuclear wars, but the aliens are going to come save us from ourselves because humans are a parasite on the earth, right? So the aliens are going to come reign over us to save us. They are your savior, not Jesus Christ. No, it's the aliens are your creator and savior. I mean, it's the very definition of the Antichrist, someone who pretends to be God the creator and Christ the savior. So if there is a rapture and all the Christians are taken, the aliens will be, see, all of those people who were standing in the way of you guys getting the injections, all of those anti-vaxxers who were trying to murder everybody, we removed them to bring peace to the earth, you know? So anyway, it's not a mystery why they programmed these people to come out right now during the Great Awakening where people are waking up to what's going on. And then they send these people out to control the narrative, to infiltrate the truth community. Unwittingly, I'm sure. I mean, some of them probably unwittingly and some of them maybe wittingly. I don't know.
Well, it's almost like a 40-year plan, really, that we're going to start disclosing. Then the Navy will disclose that UFOs are real. Then the biological drug serums will come out. So nanotechnology, Neuralink implants will come out.
Okay, so you probably noticed when she was talking about her nano implants that she thought they weren't connected to AI. She's like, oh no, they weren't connected to AI. But then she contradicts herself immediately when she explains them and what they were doing. And they were regulating her body. They were exactly like Bill Gates' patent 060606 of having these biosensors, these nano biosensors in your body to monitor your vital signs and all of the technology we talked about with the experiments in mice to produce glucose and a whole bunch of other abilities that we'll talk about after I play this clip. But you'll notice as she goes through and talks about the abilities that all of these abilities require artificial intelligence to run them. You can't, who's making the decision to regulate your glucose? Who's doing the blood workup as it goes? Who's testing your blood levels and your alkaline levels and all of this, and then running them through a diagnostic and then adjusting the chemicals that your body produces if there's no artificial intelligence? I mean, what are there, little humans inside your body? I mean, that's the definition of artificial intelligence. I think she's saying that she didn't feel body snatched. Like she thought that she was in control. although she wasn't in a lab doing blood tests and chemical tests and, punching in numbers. I want this, this much glucose, you know, she, I think she's overlooking the fact that all of that is artificial intelligence. Something is testing and diagnosing and all of this, keeping track of your vitals, and something is telling your cells what to do with the messenger RNA, telling them what to produce and what not to produce. Like, it is AI. This is the entire AI system. And as much as she feels like she wasn't brain jacked, clearly she was. She thought she was on the moon. You know what I'm saying?
So they're almost like etheric implants, nano-etheric. They can't be picked up by MRI scans or CT or brain spec or nothing like that. They enhance brain memory. They enhance your psychic abilities. They're allowing you to pilot ships remotely through synthetic telepathy. They allow you to communicate with other SSP assets who have these implants. If you ever get brain damage, these implants fix it. And they had nanoparticles, nano gold particles in the gold fiber threads that connected to my neurons and axons. So it's quite complicated technology that's 300 years advanced, more so than what Elon Musk is working with Neuralink right now. It's not the same comparable even in the technology. It allows you, these Neuralink implants also allow you to biologically be able to control your body. Say if the lights are too bright, you can just give the command to the implants to lower the lights in your eyes, to lower the dimness and make it less brighter if something's bothering you in your environment. Say if something's too loud, again, you can give the Neuralink implants a command to lower the sound vibration in your ears to make the sound less and make it less noisy, or turn sound off. Like if you want to sleep, you can turn off your hearing completely and turn it back on.
Didn't we just hear somebody saying something about this nano neural interface that he was working on, where you could shut off your senses completely?
And we'll have virtual bodies in these virtual reality environments, particularly when it's through the nervous system. When we have nanobots in our brains that can shut down the signals coming from our real senses, replace them with the signals that your brain would be receiving if you were in the virtual environment, then it'll feel like you're in that virtual environment.
So isn't it a strange coincidence, since they rolled out COVID-19, this nano-parasite that they are telling us is COVID, people who get this flu virus, they keep reporting that something is shutting their senses off. They lost their sense of smell. They lost their sense of taste. Some people who get the COVID injections even report going blind, temporarily losing their eyesight, or going deaf in one ear. All of these things with their senses being shut off. Probably just another one of those pesky coincidences.
You can modulate your breathing, your heart rate. If your hormones are imbalanced, then the implant will just organically, biologically rebalance your hormones. So it's like it monitors everything health-wise, and it also does record everything that you do, what you feel, what you see, has audio-video recording capabilities, and it can send everything that you experience and remember, your memories, it can send that telemetry to off-world databases, holographic interfaces. It's like the cloud.
Well, that'd sure come in handy if old Klaus Schwab ever needs to pull a copy of my memories to testify against me in the world court. So she outright says that this information is going through the, quote, cloud, that they have an internet like we do on Earth, only it's more advanced. Yeah, it's a quantum computer. She always says they have an etheric sense. Yeah, it's called virtual reality. But going back to this swarm of nanobots that we were talking about from Michael Crichton's book, Prey, and how she was just talking about these nanobots in her body that collect everything, all of her memories, her life experience. They use her eyes as their cameras. They link into her ears. You know, they use all of her senses, all of her perception, and they make a complete record of her life experience. So this is what I was alluding to earlier when I said this swarm of nanobots could be considered a quote artificial spirit. And that's precisely what they use it for. This is their soul. You know, they want to upload their consciousness, right? And all of this. And we see that in the alien abduction experiences. Remember that one that Linda Moulton Howe talked about that I put in also in the Artificial Dimensions series in those long videos where they call it soul transfer or soul harvesting, that these aliens that people are reporting this, that they remove this nano swarm, they call it the entity, and then they have these other cloned bodies ready. And then they will take the entity out of one body and put it in another body.
I'm Intelligence Gray, who walks over to a bed-like apparatus upon which there is lying a male human, and the Gray reaches down, and Linda even asked me, could this be possible? Are they doing this in front of me like a hologram? Because this is what occurs. The Gray's long 4 fingers just seem to pass through the man's chest. Shows it to Linda Porter, and she gets telepathic thoughts like this. It is important that the entity, and she gets the symbol or gets communication that when they say entity, they are meaning soul, spirit, that the man's entity and this particular container of the man's body, it's important that the soul remain inside of such a container for a longer period of time than the man's body is willing to give, because the man is dying of heart disease. And the Gray communicates that they are letting this version of the man die, but over in a tube. And when there's a gesture, now she sees that there are these tubes that have various people in them, and one she recognizes in the tube, which has light above and light below, is a man who looks a little bit younger than the man on the table. And the Gray being communicates telepathically to her, because it is important for the soul spirit, but he uses the word entity, to stay inside of this type of container, we are going to revivify him in this cloned body, in this tube that we can preserve and control. And we are going to put him in Australia, and in his home in the United States, he will die.
Okay, so we have a story, and I know there's a lot of swirling talk in the truth community that we have seen that happen with, you know, leaders and politicians and celebrities that were like, wait a second, she looks a little different, or he looks a little different, or they look exactly the same, or, you know, but it's this breeding program. They absolutely do have a cloning breeding program. But again, I think the alien abductees have misinterpreted what they were seeing, because we didn't have a knowledge base to understand that this nanotechnology that was recording their every life experience that could be transplanted into another entity is not their soul. It's a nano swarm. It's exactly what the people in the secret space program report. While we're on the subject of aliens, here's one more clip of an alien abductee that had an encounter with these aliens coming into their bedroom that I wanted to play. This is Dr. Carla Turner. This full version of this video can be found at the very bottom of my website in that next level stuff where we started talking about the artificial dimensions. I think it's like the 3rd one on the list down there. But I'm just going to play like 2 minutes of it here that applies to this virtual reality. Now, Carla Turner was way ahead of her time. This was back in like the 90s. And of course, a lot of people who start talking about the truth end up losing their lives. And that happened to Dr. Turner. But I do have all of her seminars in the archive, and so they'll be available in the gallery when we get it all set up. but she was hot on the trail of this VR thing. She was really the only one in all of the alien abduction research who said something weird's going on here. Just because someone says that they experienced this, maybe they didn't. There seems to be an element of virtual reality here. And this is one of the cases that she cited.
Extraordinary case, multiple case that I have helped research for the last couple of years involving an abductee named Ted Rice. This is the one story I do intend to tell in detail before going on. In the early 1990s, Ted was in Florida visiting an old friend named Marie, and she had also invited a third friend, a woman named Frances, as a house guest. Ted was in one room. Marie and Frances went to bed in twin beds in the other room. Shortly after going to bed, Ted heard his hostess Marie screaming, "Ted, come here quick." And he hopped up out of bed, ran down the hallway, and as he approached the other bedroom, he could see a blue glow coming through the open bedroom doorway. When he walked inside, he saw a very strange situation. His host, Marie, was pinned as far away, up against the wall, as far away from the bed area as she could, staring fixed at one of the twin beds in which Frances was still lying. The bed was surrounded by a large, spherical, blue energy field of some sort through which little lights seemed to dart and move. Frances was raised in a slightly raised position just as she had been starting to sit up in the bed and had been paralyzed in that position. Ted and Marie yelled at her, "Are you in pain? Can we help you? What's wrong?" She could barely hear them, and when she did answer them, they could barely hear her, and this is in a small bedroom. She, for several minutes, they observed, was carrying on a conversation with the ceiling. And then a few minutes later, she was carrying on a conversation with the foot of her bed. A few more minutes passed, and the sphere of electrical energy disappeared, and Frances was able to move again. When she sat up, she told them what she had been experiencing. It had begun, she said, hearing the sound of a helicopter low over the house. And in fact, she had turned to her hostess, Marie, and said, "What's a helicopter doing over the house this low, this time of night?" Marie said, "What helicopter? I don't hear anything. You're dreaming. Go back to sleep." Frances said, "No, don't you hear that helicopter?" At that point, she had started to sit up. That's when the blue sphere of energy had coalesced around the bed. Frances told them after this was over that it had seemed as if the ceiling dissolved or disappeared, and I've heard this over and over and over again, and she could see through the ceiling up to the trees above the house where there was a strange crash. She had thought it was a copter when she heard the sound, but as she looked up, it was not like any copter she had ever seen. And within this were two alien creatures, which she described in physical detail, with which she carried on a conversation for several minutes. And then she said they came out of the craft and beamed down to the foot of the bed. Didn't you see them? And where she carried on another few minutes of conversation. When the sphere disappeared, so did the aliens, so did the invisible ceiling, and so did the strange craft. Frances had not been able to see the blue sphere of light around the bed. All she had seen was a craft, heard noises, had a conversation with two alien entities. Marie and Ted, who were outside of this field watching this, saw and heard only the blue sphere. If they had not been in the room to observe this, Frances would have believed with all sincerity that she had had exactly the encounter she thought she had, but she didn't.
And what we call the internet here, they have a different form of it on Mars and other planets. So you don't have to have any external devices to do that anymore. The implant does it all in your brain for you.
So those Neuralink implants basically are helping me to make those connections. That's why I don't have a problem with them. And they're not invasive. Like a lot of people think they're going to be like, they're going to cut you open and stick some wiring in you. No, it's not like that at all. It's like, we see those movies where someone takes the pill and they have like these super abilities with, they can write a book, in a day and all kind of crazy stuff. It's really actually like that.
See, this is what I was talking about earlier. This is where it becomes a really slippery slope, because we're talking about somebody in the truth community that has 10 times the subs that I have, and he gets invited on all the truth community shows, even the Patriot shows and Mel K and, all of these, and he's preaching these antichrist implants, mark of the beast. I mean, this is big trouble. And that's why I keep making these videos and pushing these projects and doing the, embarrassing fundraising, and all of it is because somebody's got to get the word out. So now, on top of fighting big pharma billionaires and DARPA projects and black ops and all of this other stuff, alien races, now we're fighting people in our own truth community who are saying that the mark of the beast is a great thing. Look, it's like take a pill and you can write a book in a day. And, I mean, somebody has to say it. And I don't have anything against, you guys know, I don't make videos against other people. That's not my shtick. I don't do that. But in this case, I have to warn people not to take the mark of the beast.
And it doesn't fade. It's always there. Sounds pretty cool, right? So these technologies are what's going to happen for us.
I'd also like to mention that much of her experiences are mingled with the exact experiences that we hear from the SRA victims, satanic ritual abuse victims, the MK Ultra victims. You've already heard her use terminology like altars. Some of us have altars. And then now you'll hear in this clip, she literally talks about the pedo rings. She recalls being taken to a hot tub, taken out in the woods, all of the same experiences that SRA victims like Fiona Barnett and the others report, or MK Ultra victims like Kathy O'Brien report. So it is my opinion, this is just my opinion, but it is my opinion that what they are being told is the planetary corporations. They're actually just the corporations, the military-industrial complex, aka the worldwide human trafficking, child trafficking, pedo ring.
I remember being taken into the woods. I remember there was some kind of a cabin, a log medium-sized cabin, and in the back of the cabin, there was a hot tub. So I remember my head being dunked underwater and just them trying to see how long I could stay underwater and keep conscious. Mm-hmm. And they would repeat this over and over again to train me to stay longer underwater, to not lose consciousness. So that was the first kind of breakdown, I guess, of to see how long they can break you, how long they can remake you, how long they can manipulate your consciousness.
And that's what I believe the quote secret space program really is. I believe that it is these children, these people who have been experimented on their whole lives, like Max Spears. And that's why we see the overlap between the super soldier program, which is openly a transhumanist program. They're trying to make super soldiers, right? The Uberman. So there's overlap between the super soldier program and the secret space program. It's because it's all one and the same thing. And I have so much more to say on this topic. I cannot believe that this is already at 3.5 hours already. So I'm going to have to cut it here, and we'll just do a third video in this series. In fact, I think we'll do 4. I think I'll do a part 3 and part 4. A couple people had asked that I keep them a little shorter, and since these last 2 have been 3 hours, 3.5 hours, I'll just make the next 2 like an hour long or whatever. I'll make a kind of fun one. There's a lot of paranormal phenomena that I want to show you. So I'll do a sort of, as Josh would put it, a paranormal potluck with a handful. I think I have 5 or 6 stories, maybe 7 paranormal stories or stories of high strangeness that just seem totally unrelated. And how could this ever be true? And they all link to what we've been talking about here in this discussion, this last 2 videos. So the next video I'll put up, I should be able to throw it together fairly quickly. It'll be called like Paranormal Potluck. The topics are shapeshifters, walking trees. Yeah, I said walking trees, soul transfer, shadow men, and immortals. Because I never got to put that immortals clip in from Paranormal Roundtable. And that's what this technology is all boiling down to with the transhumanism, is also this immortality. That's what the gene therapy that they're layering in, so that the AI can make your body produce and heal itself, like we talked about earlier. That plays into their immortality. So just like these people in the secret space program exist, they've already, like she said, they're 300 years ahead of what they're rolling out to the masses right now. Well, it's the same with these immortality experiments. So there appear to be immortals among us. How weird is that? And be careful what you pray for, because these people who are trying to do this outside of God create an eternity absent from God. That's the definition of hell. The Bible says in Revelation 9:6 that they will long for death and won't be able to die. So I'll do the paranormal video next. That'll be a nice break from all of this New World Order and technology talk. And then I'll jump back to these clips about genetic engineering and Andrew Basiago. Remember him, that lawyer from Washington State who claimed to be enrolled in DARPA's Project Pegasus with this same type of thing, that he was going into jump rooms where this frequency would come on and then he would jump to Mars, so he thought. Well, he always claimed that Barack Obama was in the same training class with him. And remember back a couple of decades ago, there was all that cloning talk about Obama, and why is his scar different, and why does he have these enormous scars on his head and all of that stuff. And back then, before the nanotech was perfected, when they practiced putting these sensors all over the body, they used traditional invasive surgeries. And people even discussed having their heads cut open to have these Neuralinks put in their brain circuits. So as crazy as all that seemed, oh yeah, there are Obama clones. There's more than one Obama. And what's up with these scars on his head? Whatever you think, it doesn't matter to me what you think. I'm just saying it's interesting in light of Carla Turner's research. So that being said, I'm going to close this video out with like a 3 or 4 minute clip, and I will talk to you guys again soon. I love you very much, brothers and sisters. Hang in there. We're almost done. God bless you and your families.
Given all that I've said so far, it is effectively a fact that abductees like myself and so many of you, while we report our experiences honestly and sincerely, we are really reporting alien-controlled information to the research community. As abductees, our situation is this: we can see the aliens, but we can't believe them. And we can't believe what we see them do. And I know this from personal experience as well as from a number of other investigated situations with very honest, very sincere people who are telling you, just as I have told and others have told you, what we honestly perceived as happening. We're being honest, but the illusions and false memories and distortions and controlled perceptions and emotions and responses that we had do not accurately reflect always what we really went through. Fact number 6, there's a serious element of human involvement in the abduction phenomenon, in addition, of course, to the very real alien participation. You all know, of course, about many abductees' reports of being monitored, harassed by human agents of some sort, cases of phone intervention, mail intervention, helicopter surveillance, etc. And I wish I had an hour just to talk about the human side of this phenomenon, which of course I don't. Now, in Into the Fringe, for instance, I did report about my husband's abduction and interrogation and threats by the military group in 1988. Similar, at the time, I had never heard of such a thing, and I found it even more disturbing than the alien encounters. Similar reports, though, have been made by a number of other abductees, some of whom I'm sure you're familiar with, such as Leah Haley's case, Alicia Davison in California, and some of you may be surprised to know Debbie Jordan. And part of her experiences reported a very similar human abduction and interrogation. It just never quite made it into print for some reason. In Taken, there are 4 more accounts of women whose lives have been intruded upon by what seems to be military human forces. And although I'm not at liberty, as so many of us aren't in this field where confidentiality is everything, to present to you the hard evidence that we have been able to gather in some of these cases, I am convinced by the evidence that we do have in a number of these cases, it's not an alien illusion of military. We've got names, dates, places, bases. It's real. Fact number 7. Whatever else it may be, the abduction agenda involves quite physical aims and procedures. And much of what we see in these procedures goes well beyond the alleged aim of a crossbreeding program. If you think the aliens are only interested in making hybrid babies, then I invite you to figure out what these following procedures have to do with the process. First, you're aware of the various types of implants into numerous areas of the body, into the brain, through the ear, into the neck, into the spine, into the legs, the hips, and even in one man's fairly notable case, into the penis. Some of these implants have been seen on X-ray, CAT scan, and MRI. Some of them never show up. Some have been physically recovered. But so far as I'm aware today, and I do invite those who may know better to please correct me on this, whatever analysis has been performed on these objects has not given us any sensational new information. We still don't have any proof of what these things do in our bodies. What about the insertion of wires and tubes into abductees in the chest, in the kidneys, the ovaries, the wrists, the knees, and the feet, as well as the taking of human body fluids and the injection of unknown substances into the body in various locations? What about the brain operations, which in the statistics that I've been able to look at in a very general way without running them through the computer, seem to turn up as often, almost as often at least, as the reported taking of sperm and ova? In the cases reported, the individuals who've undergone or think they've undergone, because you always have to have that in the back of your mind, given illusion, who have undergone these experiences use almost identical terms in reporting what has happened to them. I felt like my head was opened up and my brain was taken out. What about the deliberate pain experiments meant to produce levels of pain in the abductees, apparently for the measurement, study, or pleasure of the aliens who are observing them? I reported on one of these with James in Into the Fringe. He was put through an extraordinarily torturous and traumatic experience, having holes drilled in a row through the top of his head. He received an apology for this. Sorry, but we had to do it. But no explanation for why he had to do it. And most people are not given an explanation. What about the other bizarre tests and procedures that are reported time and time again? Abductees immersed in water or some liquid in which they're then forced to breathe the liquid. I think Hopkins and Jacobs have made this fairly well known to you. They now include it as one of the standard procedures. What does this have to do with crossbreeding? Are being forced to eat or drink unknown substances that then produce a variety of after effects on the abductees. Angie, reported on and taken, was given a bitter red liquid to drink, passed out immediately, and came to in a very passive, hypnotic state in which she then went through an interrogation with a number of people. Ted Rice, another case that I've been working on for a couple of years, as a child was given a pill to eat or swallow that then produced on the 10-year-old boy the effects of an aphrodisiac. What about being forced to engage in a variety of sexual, not reproductive, but sexual situations with alien beings, with human-looking figures, and with other abductees? Frequently, the alien sexual activities are reported to be carried out by reptoid-looking beings, but not always. We've got reports of gray sex, hybrid sex, and Nordic sex, among others. And as just as in one of Hopkins' recently reported scenarios, I think it was on television last year on Sightings, I described and taken how Lisa, one of the abductees reported on here, was forced to have sex with another abductee in one of her encounters. It was an extremely poignant situation after the fact. The man told her, apologized to her, told her how sorry he was that he was being forced to do this to her. He said, "They've been taking me since childhood. I don't know how to stop it." And he gave her his full name. That's all he had in his control to do. What about the cloning? I mentioned this earlier. And I'm not talking about just the potential, and I think very evidentially supported idea that the little gray workers you're also familiar with, like the little guy down here on the floor, are cloned, produced, manufactured like, we do Fords, Chevys. Not just this kind of cloning of the same sort of creatures to go out and do the work, but also the cloning of human bodies, which, as I said, have been shown to abductees. Sometimes they match and are identical to the human in the situation. Sometimes they're just a bunch of identical bodies, inert adult bodies. In one case, a man was taken to a facility in which he saw a room in which there were about 40 inert human bodies, 20 male, 20 female. The males were all identical to each other. The females were identical to each other.